Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So in my last video, I shared about how I had been really sick. I had caught a virus, had me down and out for quite a while. I was having a really hard time breathing. I couldn't get through one sentence without having to stop and try to breathe. It was really bad. I hadn't been that sick since 2020. I suspect this may have actually been a variant of it, just because of how I felt and how sick I was. But in the video, I mentioned how I had started using my nebulizer, and how nothing else I had been doing seemed to have any effect whatsoever. None of the medications, none of the herbs, none of all the usual things that I would normally do to treat a virus seemed to have any effect whatsoever. And so when I started using my nebulizer, which honestly sometimes I forget I have it because I use it so rarely, and in this case I'm like, oh wait, I have a nebulizer. And so I made some solution for it, and as soon as I started using it, I felt immediate results. I could tell, I used it in the evening, and that very next morning I could tell that I was improving, because up to that point it was rough. I'm still not 100%, but I am almost back to myself. I still have a tiny bit of a cough, but I'm just kind of continuing to do the nebulizer, and all of that good stuff. And I'm very, very prone to bronchitis, respiratory things, just because of my history with allergies in the past. I've dealt with severe bronchitis chronically in the past, and so it makes me super susceptible to stuff, and it tends to take a little bit for me to get over those sorts of things. But I had a ton of people asking me about what I use in the nebulizer, and so I'm just going to share what I use. Again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, so do your own homework, but this is what I use. And you may hear baby crying in the background. We've got a newborn in the house, you know. So the nebulizer I have is just this super simple little portable nebulizer. I bought it off of Amazon. Now this exact one that I have is no longer available. It seems to be getting a little bit difficult to find nebulizers for some reason, but you can find some still on Amazon similar to this. I know Walgreens carries one. There is a kids version that I looking online, I saw that Target carries a kids version. But the one that I have is a mesh nebulizer. Very inexpensive. It was like $40 or something like that. But it does everything that I need it to do. So the solution that I made was basically like a tea, but very, very mild. It uses ginger, thyme, astragalus, and mullein. So those are the herbs that I use. I'm just going to kind of read off some of the benefits of each of those so that you understand why I used these ones. So mullein, which is like the go-to for respiratory stuff, it soothes lung inflammation, clears mucus, and supports breathing. The thyme is also those are like the top two. You definitely want to have those two. Thyme is antimicrobial. It reduces respiratory infections and clears mucus also. Now the ginger that I have, again, reduces lung inflammation, fights infections, improves circulation. And then the astragalus boosts your immune function, strengthens lungs, and reduces inflammation. You can kind of see a little bit of a pattern there with the inflammation reduction, because if you've got bronchitis, everything's inflamed. And it feels like everything's tight just because it's so inflamed. And it was really, for me, it's really, really rough. But these are the four that I use. You could also add some peppermint, which helps relieve congestion and relaxes muscles in the respiratory tract. And if you have eucalyptus, it acts as a natural decongestant and helps break down mucus. But these are the four that I use. And basically, I just take the dried herbs and I measure them out. Now mullein you can find growing all over the place. It is a weed. that you will often see growing along roadways. You'll see it growing underneath power lines. It likes very sunny locations with terrible soil. But you'll see it especially in the summertime. It's these big fuzzy leaved plants, and they'll have really big leaves at the bottom, and when they fully develop, they will grow up into kind of like a pointy cone shaped plant, and when they flower, they have yellow flowers on top. I'll put a picture right here. Once you know what mullein really looks like, you will spot it everywhere. But it grows all over the place, and this, I harvested this out of my yard. And then the others, you know, this is just dried ginger, just like you would get in the food section of the grocery store, in your spice section, and same with thyme. It's just dry thyme leaves. The astragalus is more of a medicinal thing. Now I have it in. I buy this in bulk. But if you can't necessarily find this in bulk, what you can do is get the capsules, which the capsules have become much more easily accessible. You can kind of find these all over the place now. And just look at the ingredients, make sure that all that's in there is the dried astragalus root. And then what you can do is you can open up the capsule, measure out the root from inside the capsule, and use that. So to make the solution, I used 1 teaspoon of dry mullein leaves. I used a ½ teaspoon of thyme. I used a ¼ teaspoon of astragalus and a ¼ teaspoon of ginger. I took all of those herbs, all 4 of them, I put them in a 1 cup measuring cup, and then I add in a cup of boiling distilled water. Distilled water is best because you're not going to have any kind of chemicals or anything like that, because again, you're going to be breathing this in. So distilled water is best to use. And then just add in the boiling water and let it sit from 20 to 30 minutes. I went kind of like right in the middle to make mine. And then just strain it out, run it through a coffee filter to get all of the particles out, and then just take that liquid, and that's what you're going to use. Now you could cut that in half if you want, because you're not going to use very much of it, and you do need to make this daily. What you don't use, you want to put in the refrigerator and let it sit in there, but you do want to make this daily and have a fresh solution every single day. So you could cut the quantities in half if you want to, but it uses very little to begin with. But once you have that solution, you would take 2 to 3 milliliters of it, and you're going to put it in your nebulizer in the little reservoir there, and you're going to also add in some saline, and this is going to be your 0.9% saline, which is designed for nebulizers. It's meant to be inhaled. There's all different types of saline out there. You want something like this. You can get these little vials of this kind of saline. I just get it off of Amazon, but you can probably find them at like maybe a Walgreens or something like that. I'm not sure. I just get it off of Amazon because it's convenient, and I just keep these on hand. But each one of these, of course, is sterile. You're going to mix your solution 50-50. So if you put in 3 milliliters of the herbal mix, you're going to put in 3 milliliters of the saline, because you want it to be a 50-50% dilution. And then that's it. You just use your nebulizer. You can do it 2 or 3 times a day. And again, you make a fresh solution every day so that everything is fresh and all of that. But yeah, y'all, this kind of did the trick for me. And again, do your own homework. Of course, if there's something you're allergic to, don't use those things. But this is what helped me, like immediately helped me start turning the corner, because I was in some pretty rough shape. Like I said, it was the sickest I've been in a long time. Even when I have the flu, I'm not bedridden. There's only really been probably 3 times in my life that I've been bedridden from sickness, and the first being Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and then the original COVID in 2020, and then I was bedridden for a few days with this one, and could have stayed in bed longer, but I made myself get up and get mobile to get circulation going, to get me breathing better. Because I was concerned about, you know, like developing pneumonia or something. I was really, really sick. But anyways, I hope that is helpful. Again, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And I will put the measurements for all of these of what I used and links and all that stuff in the video description down below. So that is it for today, friends. God bless, and I'll talk to you next time.